Hey everybody, Brian Good here. Thanks for clicking on Snow Talk. I guess you guys realize that the majority of the blog is not going to be about snow. Once again, it's going to be about thunderstorms. I think I really have jinxed it since I changed the title. You want to know, I know, about the longer term and when are we going to see anything wintry, and I'll get to that toward the end of the video. Just keep in mind, the system is going to be, the process here is going to be a step-down process. It's going to take some time to get us into the point of seeing anything on that level. Between now and then, it's going to be active, but more so for the warmer events than it is colder events. So the board, last week I had the 18th, 19th, somewhere around there, that system on the board, but I mentioned that would be the system that wouldn't likely give us anything wintry. It had a chance to in the Ohio Valley in general, but it would be a catalyst to get us to Thanksgiving week. So, and I still feel that way, but because I feel that way, I'm going to take it down to 0, because the system that I think is, or the setup that's going to be a little more exciting for snow lovers, is going to be closer to Thanksgiving, and that's going to be outside of the range that we do this vlog. It may make it on the board, though, before this week is over, so keep checking back. And I'll get into more details on why that is the case in a second. Let's cover today and the setup for the storms Wednesday, because that's pretty much the buzz on social media right now. It's chilly out. Man, 59. How often is Bedford, Indiana that much warmer than Louisville? Doesn't happen very often, and this is cloud and rain induced, and it's the reason why that we are seeing temperatures in the 40s right now. We may hit 50 if the rain can ease up enough, but man, what a chilly raw day for us. Showers continue to move through. Now, you're not seeing a whole lot of the rain to our south. Let me see if I can switch on. Here's the reason why. You notice the rain disappears on the southern side here around, say, Litchfield. And that's because the radar in Louisville is down at the moment. They're working on it for maintenance. So what you're seeing is the radar out of Indianapolis that can see all the way down to Louisville. Now, when I add on the composite radar, which includes all the national radars, then you can see that it includes the Nashville data, and then you can see that there is another band of rain actually to our south, even though the Louisville radar isn't showing it. Weather Service is working on the radar, and they hope to have it up in time for our storms on Wednesday. But in case you look at your Weather Service, especially radar image, you're thinking, hey, there's no rain out there. But it's raining. It's because it's only detecting what Indianapolis radar is looking at. I just want to pass that along. But occasional showers moving in from the south. Here's a wider view. This is that low pressure. I tell you, the Euro nailed this. And I'm glad we stuck with the rain chance and cloudy forecast for today, right at the very beginning of it showing up on the models, because all the other models kept it south, but the Euro was always the one that kept the low moving in with a trough extending from it. They would be moving to the northeast, and the Euro really sniffed us out well and nailed it. Again, great job on the Euro there. But it is going to move out, and that is good. But then we've got to deal with our next bad boy. The system is now digging into San Francisco. This energy is going to roll out through the Rockies and eventually become a much more organized area of low pressure that is going to work its way to the northeast. Not due east, but northeast. That'll keep us on the warmer side of it as it passes through. But it is going to occlude itself, and I'll explain what that means in a second. First off, here's the severe risk for tomorrow, for your Tuesday. Only a marginal risk across Kansas and Nebraska. And then we get into Wednesday. This is the one that's causing everyone to get an uproar. Enhanced risk across a good chunk of the mid-Mississippi Valley includes a very small section of our area. In fact, a couple of our counties, Perry, around Du Bois, portions of Orange there, and a slight risk pretty much for the rest of our counties. And this will again be for later Wednesday night. Now, keep in mind, you always ask this, why is it that this area always seems to get the worst of the weather and then we always get it weakening here? Easy answer to that is that when systems roll out of the Rockies, they feel the effects for the first time in the Gulf of Mexico, and they really develop into really good cyclogenesis. Their lows really deepen at that point. But because of spatial conditions, where we are in relation to where that happens, they have a tendency to erupt in daytime heating, so by the time they get to our area, it's nighttime. So that's why most systems weaken as they get to I-65. Now, if they move faster than expected, that threat can be pushed all the way into our area. Or the conditions set up to where the system does not see the Gulf of Mexico until it gets right over us, and then we get the initiating storm before it weakens to our east. And we've seen that a few times. But this is a very common thing to happen where the low sees the effects, all the ingredients come together to our west, and we get the leftovers toward the end of it all. So here's how it's looking on the models. This is the RPM model. We dry out Tuesday. We get some sunshine back tomorrow, and it's going to be much warmer tomorrow. Then we get into Wednesday. The wind's picking up. Here comes that low pressure rolling through by 5 in the afternoon. Here is the low. Now, here's what we're expecting the low to do as it moves to the east Wednesday night. You see an impressive line here of thunderstorms. Now, the low is going to begin to occlude itself out to where it becomes mainly just an area of low pressure. There's not much of a cold front and warm front scenario. The two kind of get lost. So because of that, the system in general is going to weaken. But it's going to become what we call negatively tilted. The trough is going to aim itself, it's going to lean backwards as we get into Wednesday night. And the opposite effect would be a positive tilted trough. If they lean forward, these usually are more heavy rain producers when they lean forward with the front and not much severe weather. When the low pressure begins to slow down and the tail begins to wrap around and catch up around it, it leans backwards, and we call that a negative tilted chart. You notice how I'm moving crazy in my chair here. That negative tilt actually creates a better chance for rotating storms and strong winds. So that's why this system is getting a little more attention than the last one did, because it is becoming very impressive on its negative tilt. So, having said that, it still looks to be a late Wednesday evening event and early overnight on Thursday. So we have strong winds. We have the negative tilted charts that tells us the rotation is going to be a little stronger with the system. But do we have the energy to reach out and grab a hold of all that activity? And that's where instability comes into play. First off, here are the winds on the NAM aloft at about 850 millibars. That's about 50 to 60 knots. Very strong winds. Here is the GFS. Very similar. Very strong winds. And it's got some cape with this. And that's the ability to reach out. Again, it's a very thin line of cape, mainly for West Kentucky, West Tennessee, and that is the reason why the enhanced area has been outlined here, because once you head toward I-65 later in that night, that thin layer of cape fades off. Still at a slight risk, because we did have wind damage with the last event, even though we had very little cape. And I'll show you why very little cape can still cause problems this time of the year. Here's the GFS cape. Very similar, very narrow band to our west especially. Here's the Schreff model for the ability for shear. Anything over 40 can be impressive. We've got values over 80 showing up. Quite a bit of shear along the southeast side of this low. And the helicity, anything over, I would say 250, 300, it gets my attention. We've got some values here over 500 shown up here across the Mississippi Valley and the Ohio Valley. So it's worth watching when it comes to rotating storms for sure, but also for any instability, because if you look carefully, I'm sorry this is so small, but this is ground level. This is a sounding from the NAM. This is way up here where the airplanes are flying, all right? If you look carefully, you go barely up in the atmosphere, you get to 40 knot winds and 60 knot winds right there, and that's basically just above the tree line. 60 knot winds. So all you need is a tall shower, basically. And it doesn't look like there's going to be much lightning and thunder, if any at all, when this comes through. So heavy bands of showers, if they can get tall enough, can really... I mean, look at this jet. The low-level jet is impressive. Over 120 knots, 130 knots. That is a very strong wind field. And when you look at the direction of everything, winds are mainly south, slightly southwest at the surface, and due west aloft. So there is directional shear for sure. And there is certainly some speed shear when it comes to right at the ground level here. So it won't take much instability or cape to get the clouds big enough to get into that 60 knot wind, and that is going to be our biggest concern. Can that happen? Yes. Will it happen? Don't know that yet. But it is certainly possible, and that's why the Storm Prediction Center has outlined the areas that they have. When you look at the severe parameters, you notice cape is at 0. So again, it's showing hardly any cape. Helicity, though, 527, well over the 250, 300 that I worry about. LI is 9, positive 9. So again, very little, if any, lightning detected out of that. So we are certainly seeing the values that tell me that this is mainly a high wind event, a lot of heavy rain, briefly passing through this band. It's just all about, can we tap into those winds or not? And that's what we don't know for sure yet, but it is a system with watching. Is it going to be a major outbreak? No. Is it going to be something we're going to be talking about for years? No. But can it knock trees down while you're trying to go to bed Wednesday night? Yes. And that's the reason why we're trying to make sure that you're aware of it. And it's only Monday. Got another full day worth of data to really track. Behind it, once it goes by, it gets cold Friday especially, parts of Saturday. I mean, 850's tank, thanks to our friends here from Weather Bell, showing the 850 temperatures well below the 0 mark. But can you get anything wintry? Well, it looks dry. This is the 700 millibar. That's my favorite layer to look at for a potential for anything that could produce maybe snow flurries or something. It looks dry, so it looks sunny, but cold once the system moves by. And then we get into another system. This is the one for the 19th. This one could give us another round of heavy rain and thunderstorms. And that one could set the stage. This is Thanksgiving, or day before Thanksgiving on the GFS. It may not be exactly right, but it shows the idea of what could happen, where winter could finally show up on the map.